Wait, I'm just curious. Like, we're talking about hot dog water,
Yes.
and I'm trying to figure out what, like, you're saying, like, people feed this to people, hot dog water?
Yeah, like Oscar Mayer wiener, boiled hot dogs, water. What you do, like if someone's being
What?
like, yeah, if someone's being like not cool. See, people think Canadians are like uh super friendly all the time. Nah, we're assholes. So I don't know if anywhere else does this, but I know if someone's like being rude in your house, in-laws, I've heard stories of people taking the water they boil their hot dogs in, putting it in ice cube trays and freezing it. And then when they go to get a beverage or they want a beverage, you go, don't worry, sit down, I got you. And you take those ice cubes and you put them in your drink, in their drink, and you
What?
serve it to them. Yeah, it's gross, but it's a
That's a
thing.
thing.
Yeah, so if someone's like going off, like
Oh my
talking
God,
during
that's
the game
amazing.
or whatever, yeah, you just feed them Oscar
God, I
Mayer
thought I
hot dog
was
water.
thought I was a king of pranks, man.
It's
We
I'm telling you, I'm gonna do it. Next Patriots fan that's allowed in my house with COVID restrictions, I think that's what they're getting.
dude, hot dog water. I've like my mind is blown right now.
Disgusting. It's disgusting.
Oh, here we go. I guess we got to start the show now. I'm ready for this prop bet thing, man. Like we're gonna be talking about prop bets. We're gonna be going all across the board, discussing, different things that people should be playing versus
That's
like the
right.
normal things that people play. Like if you're an average bettor, right, and you have certain props that you go with, of course you can, make a little bit of money by going off certain things. But the draft and the Super Bowl in particular, they're not easy to predict. And so when you guys take into account these props, I think that you should be having a little bit more fun with it. So let's go ahead and kick off this episode real quick. Where am I? Let's do it.
Let's go.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
What's going on, guys? Welcome on into another episode. That's right, another episode of Fantasy Intervention coming at you hot and quick. I am joined tonight by Thomas Tipple. What's going on, Thomas? How you doing?
Hey man, just happy to be here. Happy to keep getting ready for the big day tomorrow.
Dude,
Can't wait.
I'm ready for it.
It needs to happen. It needs to happen now. I was ready for it after the Bucky Brooks trade up for a quarterback by Baltimore comment. That's when I knew it was my time to just fold it in and get ready.
Well, there's so many, off takes, so much clickbait and everything, and everybody has their own opinions on things, and that's fine. But, we're sitting there and we're looking at it, and there's so many different ways that these teams can go. I mean, we're talking about the Dolphins possibly trading it back again. They were talking about, what was it, Mac Jones slipping all the way to the 32nd pick. I mean, things are just going crazy.
Justin Fields slipping to 32.
Oh, was it Justin Fields?
Today.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, that's who it was.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's land. No, like, come on, man. Kyle Pitts isn't going to get past Pittsburgh at 24. Kyle Pitts isn't going to see 24.
I actually went through a couple different mocks today, and I had him slip in a couple different spots, but not all the way to 24. Now, what I want to do before we dive into these mock drafts, because I think the mock drafts are fun and all, but so are prop bets, right?
Yeah.
Prop bets are the blast. And when we sit there and we look at, these prop bets that are happening, a lot of times we take into account all of the mock drafts that we've been seeing come across our timelines, right? Or across our Twitter feeds. And the reality is like, they're never right. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the rankings, right? And ESPN had 7 players outside of their top 7 who ranked that actually got drafted or that did not get drafted in the first round last year.
Oof.
So, I mean, that's brutal. Then you talk about the mock drafts, right, that they put out. It's even worse. So if you're sitting there, right, and you're looking at these prop bets and you're trying to come up with your answer because of these mock drafts for prop bets, there's a great chance you're going to be wrong. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, Kuiper, McShay, they all got 6 picks right in 2020. 8 of those 18 picks total between all 3 of them came in the first 3 picks overall. That's absolutely brutal. I mean, literally, you're talking about out of the 18 of, what is that, 72 picks? No, I'm sorry. That's what, 118? Either way, you're talking about 30% of the picks that they got right at a very limited count of 25%. You're talking about them getting very few of them right outside of the top 3. It's absolutely insane. So, with that being said, there are small misses that always come across. Like, for example, Daniel Jeremiah mixed up Herbert and Tua. McShay had Jefferson at 22, but trades weren't allowed, up until this year for ESPN. So guess what? They still got drafted by the Vikings. Just wasn't in the right spot. Peter King actually crushed his last year. He picked 9 correct selections.
Goat.
Yeah, and then he had 2 more that ended up with the right team, just the wrong spot because they traded back or pick or 2.
Right.
But for the most part, these professions, they have a better grasp than we do on a lot of this stuff, but they're still going to get the majority of these prop bets wrong. With that being said, prop bets typically don't give you a significant chance to make money. Like, you're pretty much going to pay $100 just to make 50. And if you get it wrong, you're losing the whole $100. If you get it right, then you make half of what you put in. So when we sit there and we look at it, right? The narrative for this season going forward is the offense is heavy, right? And it's not just the offense, it's the offensive skill position players. So Penei Sewell was a guy that was talked about at one point as like the 102, right? The second best player on the board. But then we've had all these QBs move up, and that happens every single year. It's not even like just the QBs, though. Like we talked about, it's the skill position players. Now we're seeing Jamar Chase move up, and in some cases go above Penei Sewell. So with that being said,
Taylor.
Yes, Taylor's actually might come through with a correct pick this year. But with that being said, is there any prop bets that you typically gravitate towards when it comes to the draft prop bets? Like, is there anything that you like to go towards, whether it's college players drafted from a certain school, maybe quarterback selected, running back selected, wide receiver selected? What are you thinking?
So for me, I'm looked at as kind of what you might refer to as a conservative prop better. I like to take the positional prop bets myself. I know they're the less crazy ones, but like first offensive lineman, how many receivers, first running backs are drafted. I like to pick the positions a little more than the spots, just because I'm not the GOAT Peter King or the great, formerly the great Mike Mayock. After seeing what he's done with the Raiders, but I'm not those guys, and I know that. So if I'm putting my money down, I'm going to trust my own rankings on players and just go off of that. That way I can say I lost because my rankings were where I thought was wrong, and I can live with that. If I lose because of something outlandish, at least I'll have a hard time living with that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is like nobody knows. Like so analysts, right? They chase positions, especially skill position players. Yeah, a lot harder after we have a successful draft class. So, for example, what was it, like 2014, I believe, when we had the big draft class where there was, something like 10 receivers selected in the first round, and it crushed. It was like Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, Devontae Adams. Like, it was insane draft class, right? The following year, the NFL did chase it. Like, they did go after it. But it was still something along the lines of 8 receivers picked over the first 2 rounds. 6 were in the first round, but still 8 receivers picked in the first 2 rounds. Meanwhile, most mocks actually had 11 to 14 receivers going in the first 2 rounds. So we always see that pushed a lot heavier. And I think that's something that we can take advantage of a ton of, absolutely, in the prop bet category. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about was some of the prop bets that are available for that, like the over-unders. Now, these are just small buckets. Like, we're talking about, maybe a plus 280 on selecting the under for 5 receivers drafted in the first round or 6 receivers drafted in the first round. The issue is I think that actually passes. So when I look at it, I actually want to take the receivers in the first, 2 rounds, because there's a lot of times where you see these prop bets, especially in day 2, They see how many receivers go in day one, and they just like blast it through the roof. And it's like, dude, what do you like? Yes, take the under the next day in most cases, especially when you have a deep wide receiver class like you did in 2020. Now, for the receiver class for you, do you like this year better or last year better?
Last year by a lot. I actually like the whole draft class better. My whole take on the draft, and I've said this a few times, is last year was the Matrix, and I have a feeling this year is going to be the Matrix Reloaded. Like, I think people are going to look at that's the problem. You get something great the first one. This is like the first movie, and sequels are never the same. I think people are going to chase the receivers, especially in this draft, like they did last year, and thinking that those second round bangers that we had like last year with Claypool and T. Higgins, how they hit, that they're going to get that this year. I don't think that's the case, man. Like, I don't see them stacking. The two classes aren't going to stack up at all. The quarterbacks for this draft, fantastic. The tight end class, better than this one, fantastic. Everything else, nah, man. It's not it.
Not it. It's not it.
That's not it.
I agree with you as well. Sitting there and looking at it, it's not it. It's not the right class for it. But keep an eye on the day two for the prop bets. That's the biggest thing that I wanted to say for the wide receivers. Now, for the day one stuff, there are certain players, right, that always disappoint, and these players are quarterbacks when it comes to the position that they're drafted at. I mean, we sat there, right, and I didn't get a chance to look it up because I actually forgot to look it up, but I think it was the night before the draft when we found out in 2018, I believe, the Browns were not going to select Sam Darnold, which is what we were led up to believe.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, right around this time that we're talking tonight, they decided they were going to take Baker Mayfield. But yet they were going to take Sam Darnold. There was no conversation, or very little conversation, I should say, up to about this point. If I'm wrong, correct me in the chat.
It was Rosen Darnold. And then all of a sudden,
was it like, Rosen?
YOLO. He was right up there. Yeah. He was ranked high. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was ranked higher than Baker was. That's why Baker was so
Baker
was
like the third or fourth quarterback, off the board. And all of a sudden, the night before, it was like, boom, Baker's now our pick. We know now. And by the chance you actually had time to put in a bet, it was gone. You didn't have a chance to put in a prop bet. So the one that I wanted to discuss, the one that's like it's got my wheels turning. It's the whole reason why I want to do this episode was Zack Wilson. We don't know that Zack Wilson's number 2 pick, right? This was assumed by the Eagles for the most part. I mean, there's a couple beat reporters that assumed it as well, but it was we were led to believe that it was going to be Zack Wilson because the Eagles wanted Zack Wilson, but the Jets wouldn't trade out of that spot. So the Eagles were like, oh, they must want Zack Wilson. We're just going to trade back because that's the only quarterback that we think can, better us over Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, which is insane.
I still think that they're going to take Zack Wilson, but there still is a chance. There's a chance that we have a Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold situation over here as to where that doesn't pay off. Now, if you're sitting there and looking at it, right, and you have Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You have Trey Lance. You have Mac Jones. If there was going to be one that's planned some, Mac Jones would probably be the worst answer, but it's still possible that it could happen. I mean, Mac Jones is kind of like Baker Mayfield to an extent, right? Like, not the most athletic, still has a little bit of athleticism to his game. I'm not saying that, don't compare them. I'm not saying they're the same player.
You heard it here first.
God, do not stop it. Stop it.
Mac Jones with Baker Mayfield. I'm tweeting it right now.
Stop it right now. That is not my point. My point is the fact that any one of these 3 quarterbacks, if they do supplant him, can supplant him. But yet, if you look at the odds, right? If you look at the odds, I'm on Bovada right now. That's the site that I'm using for this example. If you go and you look at Bovada, right, and you go into prop bets, they have only like plus 500 if it's Justin Fields and like plus 700 if it's Trey Lance, I believe. And then it is plus 5,500 if it's Mac Jones. But either way, you're still going to have to put bets on all 3 of these guys in order to get any kind of payoff. And it's not that great of a payoff. I mean, 500 is still good. Don't get me wrong. Like, go put $100 on that. You walk away with what, 5,000. So it's still not that bad of a payout. But at the same time, I want a bigger one.
Yes.
Right? Like, I want that big time payout. So sitting there and looking at it, let's say 500. Anyways, if you're sitting there and looking at it, right? Baker Mayfield had 25-1 odds going in. So yeah, you were up 2,500, you put down to 100. So sitting there and looking at this upcoming draft and what these players could end up being, instead of going and trying to chase one of these 3 quarterbacks that could be drafted second, Why don't you draft Zack Wilson, who could be drafted 3rd or 4th? Because the odds are so much better. They're infinitely better if you end up hitting on this, right? Because you're sitting there and you're looking at what, plus 5,500, I believe I said before the show? Plus 5,500, or was it 75? I think it was 5,500.
55.
So if you put down $15
Yes.
at 5,500, you're going to be walking away with 875. $875 putting down 15. If Zack Wilson goes 3rd, if Zack Wilson goes 4th, and you put down $15, it's plus 12,500. So you're sitting there and you're looking at 1,800 and what, 50, 1,875. That's absolutely nuts for throwing up $15. And guess what? You can cover that cost doing the other drafts just in case you don't. You can cover that cost, making a slight payment towards other things that are more likely.
Yes.
And boom, you're breaking even. You're solid. Now, do I think that Zack Wilson goes 3rd or 4th? No, I think he's going 2nd. But we don't know because we're not in the draft rooms.
I'm not convinced. I'll tell you this. I am putting him going 3rd. Because
I think you meant you're not convinced that it's worth putting $15
no,
down
no,
for
no,
875 or
175. 100% that's worth it. I am not convinced that he's going number 2. I think it's all a smokescreen. I think it's Fields 2, and I think San Francisco is actually going to take Wilson 3.
Well, this is why
Wilson in Shanahan's system, people are like only talking about Wilson in New York or how great Mac Jones would be in San Francisco. Zack Wilson with his arm and mobility outside of the pocket throwing the ball, Wilson is a fit in San Francisco. So I'm putting my money on Wilson going 3 because that's what I believe. That's what I have ranked. You're right. It's definitely worth the money. 100%.
$15 and you're talking about walking away with 875 or 1,875.
Yeah.
So sitting there and putting, those $15 on Wilson when 3rd or 4th makes sense. And this is why it makes the most sense to me. Is because you're talking about taking an unpolished player with mechanical issues, going to the AFC East, right? Where they have the Patriots and Bill Belichick who dominate rookie quarterbacks.
Oh, God,
right?
yeah.
You're talking about the Miami Dolphins who just abolished teams last year with turnovers and quarterbacks feeling comfortable constantly.
Yeah.
Right. And you're talking about the Bills defense, who, although did not do well at the beginning of the season, did very well in 2019. And then the second half of last year definitely stepped it up and will be adding to their defense again this year. I don't know why teams are locked into thinking that Zack Wilson is going to go 2nd when you could sit there and you can walk away with $900 or $1,800 if he goes 3rd or 4th because you're willing to put down $15. $15. It's insane to me. Absolutely love it.
Instead of going and buying lunch tomorrow, at McDonald's, Arby's, if you're lucky enough to have one around, Wendy's,
it might take it 2 days. I mean,
put that curly fries out of your mind and put $15 down on Wilson going 3, and you'll feel so good. But you'll feel better about that even if you lose it than you would eating that anyway.
Yeah,
so
and I'm not
go
saying
and do it.
Don't go chase one of those quarterbacks going 2nd because we haven't heard anything out of Jets camp. It's squeaky clean, but what if there was a chance that the Jets knew that they were going to go 2nd? They told their buddy Kyle Shanahan, who was, by the way, their best friend back a year ago, that they are going with Justin Fields. And so they traded up and said they're going Mac Jones, which, by the way, this is the best part about the whole thing, okay? Kyle Shanahan's camp, when everything has been going on, right? All this mysteries going on around everything and nothing leaked. All of a sudden, they make a trade up to 3rd and everybody knows who they're going with all of a sudden. Because Kyle Shanahan Kyle Shanahan has never had a leak. He's never had a leak. So
do you think he's the one doing the Fields I don't know what to call it, not dirt, but the smear campaign almost on Fields? You think they're running it?
No, because I think
throw the scent off.
No, I think Robert Saleh and him are tight. And I think that they knew that they were going with Fields. I think that Shanahan knew that the Jets were going with Fields, and that's why they traded up to 3 to grab Zack Wilson, not to grab one of the other quarterbacks.
I like that.
The whole concept here is to not sit there and pay $100 on a bet to make 50. It's pay $15 on a bet to make 800. And with us being, so I guess inexperienced and non-professional, like I said, the Super Bowl hits are very, very low, especially when you do parlays, and so are hits on drafts, unless you just want to make a few extra bucks. So I don't know if you guys see what I'm doing here. I don't know if you see what I'm doing here, but I'm trying to make sure that you guys hit big and have fun with this draft. So I got a few different things that I want to go over before we hop into our mock. And the mock is actually crazier than my takes on prop bets, but
I can't wait.
here we go. So sitting there and looking at it, right? I want to hit this next team because it's actually really like muddled. Like I'm kind of confused on where it's going. But we have Terry Fontenot, who took over as the GM of the Falcons, right?
Yes.
He was in charge of the pro scouting for the most part, not rookie scouting, for the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Saints took a ton of defensive backs. They Bob Harris, what's going on? Calling all the shenanigans. I'm calling a little bit of the shenanigans. So sitting there and looking at it, they've been drafting cornerbacks and offensive line. They took a few different wide receivers, but typically they take wide receivers in the second round with a little bit more risk, right? We talk about Traquan Smith. We talk about Michael Thomas. Sitting there and looking at it, if I was going to go or guess where Atlanta went, it would be tough for me to say anything other than offensive line because guess what? They were 22nd, I think, run blocking or 23rd in run blocking. It
was not good.
Same was with pass blocking. One was 22nd, one was 23rd. If I'm sitting there and looking at an opportunity with the Falcons, I can understand the mystique of trying to go win now and trying to grab your player. But this is a team, this is a new regime, right? They're taking over and trying to start a whole new and trying to build from the ground up. And we've seen what the Saints do on a regular basis. Through the draft, they build through their defense, they build through their offensive line, and they try and create that base. So with that being said, Sewell is in a very interesting position because everybody's talking about how Sewell might go and they might take Kyle Pitts, and then all of a sudden Sewell might be available for the Bengals. It's creating like this whole entire just, I guess, array or almost like a chain reaction type thing, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think there's any chance that Sewell could actually take an offensive lineman? Do you think that they locked into Pitts? How are you feeling with this one?
Check it out. So we're almost on the same wavelength here. Remember who the Falcons hired to be their coach and what he liked to do in Tennessee. They're going to build in the trench. Why on earth would you do, if you're not trading out, you've just moved money around to keep Matt Ryan. Your team is offensively pretty good. And I mean, even Gurley in the first half of the year was scoring touchdowns and running as well as his knees would let him. But eventually it all broke down. Why wouldn't you lock up that offensive line and just start from there? Taking a quarterback now, yeah, it's great. Let's get Trey Lance. Let's get guys. They're going to build their offensive and defensive line just like the teams want. He's going to want to take his offense and make it work in Atlanta for sure. Play action, big time in Tennessee. Guess what? You got to have a line to do it. You got to run the ball. That's what's coming. I'm way with you on putting a bet that Sewell goes number 4.
Well, this is the fun thing, right? This is the fun thing. I think this is FanDuel that I pulled this off of. So they have a way to kind of parlay your bets. You put 4 players in a row, you win a certain amount if you put 4 players in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of players are saying some combination of Lawrence, Wilson, random quarterback, and then Pitts.
Yeah.
Those like the top 5 bets. But if you go with Sewell, if you go Lawrence, Wilson, and Jones, right? And then you go with Sewell, and you place 1/15 of a bet, whatever your $15 minimum was. Like, so if you do, what is that? I think it's like $1. So you would end up winning like your money back essentially. Or no, I'm sorry, it's like $3. You would end up winning your money back essentially. So you place that to even it out. But the interesting thing that I want to put into people's minds is to sit there and look at the fact that they might trade Julio Jones, right? After it goes in, that they get the money right on the book so it doesn't hurt their following year's cap space as much. What if they go after Jamar Chase? Because they have a history, and I know it's a new regime. But what if they end up going after Jamar Chase to compliment Calvin Ridley? I know you don't see it, but that literally blows every other prop bet out of the water, especially when it comes to Kyle Pitts. It comes to Jamar Chase. I mean, you're talking about setting up like this infinite different, like we said, domino like reaction, right? Where it could set you up with prop bets that put you into insane positions to win a lot of money. So let's just hypothetically say, because guess what? The Falcons, by the way, declined to trade with the Lions today. That's the report. Is the Lions try to trade up to grab Jamar Chase.
Mm-hmm.
And the Falcons declined it. So either the Falcons think that Kyle Pitts is either going to be drafted by the Bengals or the Dolphins if they don't take Sewell and Slater, which is very possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible. Or they want Jamar Chase for themselves.
Oh man, I don't think they do that unless it's 100% locked and loaded, guaranteed that they're trading Julio, and I don't see Julio leaving.
Why? He
I
already has
just
his
don't.
back stacked. He's good to go, man. He gets out of town all the time.
I don't think so. I think that they can extend Grady Jarrett and save the money they need to in the cap and keep Julio there. I think that's a better move for them. I don't see them breaking up because look, AJ Brown, Corey Davis, really good tandem in Tennessee. They're gonna need two guys. They already have those two guys. Build somewhere else where you're lacking, and that's why I think offensive line is the way to go. And for the people who think they're taking Pitts, they've traded a second-round pick for a tight end 2 years in a row, including this one. They're not going Pitts. There's no way they're using that 2 seconds and the 4th overall pick on a tight end is not going to happen. Not going to happen.
So you're helping out my point by saying they're taking Jamar Chase?
I think they're taking an offensive lineman so Matt Ryan doesn't die trying to throw it to Jamar Chase.
Well, they've taken like 3 or 4 offensive linemen in the first 2 rounds over the past like 3 years. So let's go back and let's go ahead and pump the brakes. Just in case the Falcons, we're gonna leave Jamar Chase on the table to go to the Falcons just in case, right? If not, like I'm still thinking the Bengals are gonna take Sewell, so we could just swap, like snap, right? So if we sit there. If you get the reference, you get it. If you don't, my bad. So sitting there looking at it, right? The Dolphins went ahead and they traded Eric Flowers. Okay.
Yes.
Back to Washington. Eric Flowers is the guard. They have Robert Hunt, who was actually the player that profiled more as a guard, but ended up playing at the right tackle position and played phenomenally. He actually played his ass off on the right tackle position and graded out very well. Meanwhile, on the other side, Austin Jackson struggled at the left tackle position. He actually allowed like the 8th most pressures on the quarterback for any tackle.
Not surprising.
It is surprising, but Jackson also was debatable about being able to play guard. He's 6'6", so it might be a little bit harder for Tua to see over his head type stuff. But if he can create lines and he's a power, guard, like he was kind of a power tackle to an extent, I think it could still work out. And I think that the Dolphins have to go offensive line. I have them locked in for offensive line, but Slater makes sense. But could they trade back? Could they trade back?
I think this is going to be one of those years where you could see 3 or 4 teams trade up into the top 8, like more than we've already seen trade. I think there's 2 or 3 more trades kind of waiting to be unleashed potentially. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. 100%.
I mean, they've already traded twice. Like they said they would be willing to move back again if the right offer was made. And I think that's like a real possibility. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, right? I'm like, man, this makes things really, really interesting.
Big time.
Because if they move back, right, it opens up an array of prop bets. All right. Because all they're projected to take is a tight end with Pitts. They're projected to take a wide receiver, Jamar Chase, and they're projected to take an offensive lineman. Everything after that is like fireworks for prop bets. We're talking about plus 2,700 if they draft defensive line, which Barmore would make sense if they traded back. Mm-hmm. They're projected 3,400 for a corner, which there are an array of corners they can take if they fade back. We have, linebacker, 4,900. We have Kwity Paye, who makes sense. Micah Parsons is a dream. 1,100, though. Plus 1,100, which is almost as much as you're sitting there talking about if Zack Wilson goes fourth.
Yeah.
For a safety. And Morig makes so much sense, right? Or Morig, however you say his name. Yeah. He's a perfect fit for that situation. They need a safety. It's a good fit. Either way.
I think if they're trading back, I think it's going to be linebacker. But, I mean, at that price,
there's only one real safety. There's only one real safety that's going in this first round in most cases. It could be this guy. They could be fighting over him. It's possible. But you're talking about 1,100.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, 11,000. I said 1,100, 11,000. So I want to propose a trade. I don't know if you're ready for this.
I want to hear it.
And I actually have a different trade in my mock draft. This is a different trade in my mock draft, but I want to propose a trade that will blow minds where the Vikings move up with the Dolphins to grab their guy. Yeah. At number 6.
Dirty.
Now, why would the Dolphins trade back? The Vikings, they have limited trade assets, right? They pretty much already, moved away from Riley Reef, Anthony Harris signed with another team. So like the guys that they had, transition tagged or franchise tagged, no longer options.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
The closest trade that I could find was, where is it? It was when the Bills moved up from 12 to 7. We're still talking from 14 to 6, so it's a little bit bigger gap, slightly bigger. And they traded their 12th round pick and added 2 late second round picks. There was 2 late second round picks. Okay. So if the Vikings could end up putting together a package where they say they're first, 2/3 this year, which are early to mid thirds.
Okay.
And then they throw in their second next year, it would end up coming out about even. Now, that's still less value than what the Bills traded, moving up from 12 to 7, right?
Yes.
But for the Dolphins to do this, if the Dolphins were sitting there, right, and they knew that the Patriots could trade up and grab their guy at 7, 8, or 9, but they could allow the Vikings to come in and take the quarterback as to where they believe the New England Patriots could do it, that could stop the Patriots from having their quarterback of the future.
That's the second time in the last couple of days where I've seen the Vikings projected to take a quarterback, and I don't see their
1 year left with Kirk Cousins.
I thought they had extended him.
Not that I saw. No, this is last year. So the biggest thing is, all right, this is where my
information.
This is where my thing goes just completely out the window. This is where my theory goes completely out the window. They need offensive line. They need offensive linemen bad. Elijah Vera Tucker's going to fit in there. Darisaw is going to fit in there. One of them are most likely going to make it. If not, then they can go cornerback. But they have invested in their defense again. And they have like 9 picks in this draft because they let like 6 or 7 of their defensive starters or defensive second string people walk the offseason before that. So they have a bunch of compensatory picks. Yeah. And then they also have a few more picks in next year's draft because of the whole situation with Ngakoue, where they traded him to the Ravens. So that they have a conditional pick. Plus, everybody else that they saw walk, but I don't think they'll probably end up with very many compensatory picks this year. But it's possible, right, that they could move up and take a player which said opens Pandora's box. I mean, sitting there looking at it, they do have to rebuild the secondary, or they rebuilt the secondary, right? And then they also brought on D linemen and outside linebackers. So, like I said, we're still missing that offensive line. I think that would be the position that they prefer to draft in. But if they feel like they end up drafting that player and that player can get them over the hump, and then they have Kirk Cousins left over, after this year, and they don't want to re-sign him, they're probably not going to have a pick 14 or less again, right?
That's very true. Yeah.
They'll probably end up making the playoffs this year. Very real possibility. And they won't be able to draft this guy again.
Back?
With the acquisitions they made. I mean, Patrick Peterson, they literally added on, they re-added on their Mackenzie Alexander, who was a stud for him prior to the whole Kendall Fuller situation with Washington. They added on all the right pieces again. So I do believe that it's a real possibility that this could happen.
Okay.
But I think there's other teams. So I'm going to get back to you on this because this is all about prop bets, right? We're not talking about the actual mock draft that I had planned. This is just a theory in order to make a shit ton of money off of things that aren't supposed to happen. So sitting there and looking at it, this actually will open up like 10 sexy prop bets. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through a couple because we got a mock draft to get to. And I'm pretty much only trying to go through the top 10, picks right now for prop bets, because after that, it just gets a little, wonky.
It gets insane.
Yeah, it does. But if they end up making this trade, this opens up to 5 quarterbacks can be selected in the top 10. 6 possibly in the first round if they feel like a Kyle Trask or Kellen Mond is worth that 32nd overall pick. I'm not saying that they do. It just opens up that possibility. Tampa Bay might need a replacement quarterback that they want to bring up over the next couple of years. So like a Davis makes sense there. Davis Mills. So
okay.
I mean, it's not likely. I'm just saying it's possible. So this opens up the 5 quarterbacks can be selected in the top 10 picks, which ends up having something like plus 500. Then we sit there and we look at, real quick.
Yes.
Just to address the Vikings conversation, we just had Facebook user pop in. They got Pierce back. They signed the Giants defensive tackle. Yes, that's the defensive tackle I was thinking about. They're getting Barr and Kendricks back from injury. They also added an offensive lineman and I believe a safety as well and a corner. So yeah, they readjust their defensive situation. I do think that the Vikings defense is going to bounce back.
Okay.
All right, but going back to the prop bets, we sit there and we look at the top lock for 3 out of the 4 wide receivers possibly if nobody trades up. Now I want to address this because of the fact that the Lions, I believe, are going to select Waddle over any other wide receiver if they still stay at number 7 overall. Waddle fits in their system. He's a tough player. He's what they want. He's that type of player. And let's be real. Like, is there any other team that needs wide receivers more than the Lions do?
Cephas season, baby. Let's go. Perriman, the rebirth. Here we go for the 4th time.
Oh God! Stop! Oh man, did you see that thing about Jared Goff throwing bombs to Perryman? Oh my God. Yeah, it was a big hype piece.
I don't want to.
So we have that situation where we have all of a sudden Jamar Chase number 1, we have Waddle number 2, and then we have Devonta Smith number 3. Now the 4th wide receiver's up in the air, and the reason why I bring this up is because Rondell Moore, the other wide receivers, they'll give you a little bit of an up if you're betting, especially if you're betting hundreds of dollars. Like, yes, you can play some of these bets, but if you're playing 20, 30, $50 or something, Rondell Moore makes things very, very interesting because Rondell Moore, if it goes in that order, we have Jamar Chase, we have Jalen Waddle, we have Devonta Smith. If you go with Rondell Moore, it's plus 2,600. So you're talking about the Arizona Cardinals who need speed, who wanted to go after Isabella, but Isabella is obviously not the answer. Plus, Rondell Moore can play out of the slot, which they don't have a slot guy. Christian Kirk, sorry, you Christian Kirk truthers out there, he's probably not the answer.
Sorry, Corey. Sorry, buddy.
So, sitting there and looking at it, right? If you can end up placing, a little bit of money on this, I think you can end up paying out big if you do select Rondell Moore. I'm not saying that Rondell Moore is going to be the 4th receiver selected as a lock, but it's an interesting prop bet that you could get your money behind. Do I think that Rondell Moore goes there? No, I think he goes 29th or later, but it's still a very real possibility if Arizona wants to try and capitalize on their offense and they think that Kyler Murray can outrun some of these teams, like no pun intended, but outproduce some of these teams, outscore some of these teams. We're talking about some real money with them going with Rondell Moore. The last one that I want to bring up,
okay,
right, is the aforementioned Dolphin Prop, right, where we talked about how we have the 2,700 for the defensive line if Miami takes defensive line. So if they trade back, they're talking about drafting at 14th overall. Now they could trade back up and try and get Darisaw ahead of the Chargers, but honestly, I see them kind of sitting pat at this point and trying to get as much value as they can with the picks that they have. So 2,700 if they select defensive line, 3,400 for corner, plus 4,900 for linebacker. They got Kwity Paye, Micah Parsons, and then 11,000 for Mo Rig, just to reiterate that. I don't know. It's something that's just burning a hole in my mind, and it's not burning a hole in my pockets anymore because I definitely place bets on all those that I talked about.
That Dolphins one is intriguing. I think trading back for them is right on par. Imagine them getting another 1st-round pick for trading back. Imagine that. And think of just how they've manipulated the draft board for them already. And if they do, I don't like the safety bet. I don't think that's it. But they release Van Noy. They've got linebacker problems. And I think that would be the money bet to me. Is taking that lineman in Miami. That's the bet I want to make. And I'll probably be making that one.
Yeah, Owusu Komora, I'm butchering his name. I'm not going to try again. Owusu. So sitting there and looking at it, the Eagles, right? The Eagles are another interesting one to trade back, especially if they make a move with the Dolphins or anybody along those lines.
They're going to screw that pickup.
So they just lost Jalen Mills, right? And they brought in a safety for 1 year from the Vikings, Anthony Harris. It's just 1 year. And the Eagles need to relieve salary cap space. I don't believe they're going to be able to re-sign Anthony Harris unless they do a long-term deal. Yeah. So I did want to bring up Trey Moehrig as another landing spot because if the Eagles make their first pick a safety, just like with the Dolphins, you're talking about plus 7,500. It's not as sexy as the Dolphins, but it's still a bet that I would be willing to make.
It's more realistic than the Dolphins, too, in my personal opinion. If they don't somehow blow it and take a quarterback somewhere. which
I don't know if they'll have an opportunity, especially if you're taking the bet on the top 10. All right, so let's go ahead.
Stupider things,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
out of that organization.
So those are my prop bets, everybody. You can get on board, you can't. It's up to you. But I do want to go ahead and bring up this draft real quick. We're going to go through this relatively quickly. It's a little bit unorthodox for the players and who I want them to go in certain places, but it's going to be fun. We're going to have some fun with this.
I dig this.
Let's go ahead and knock this out. Of course, on the clock first, we have the Jags in their depth three, taking Trevor Lawrence. That's no question. I told you guys, I still think it's a possibility that the Jets end up taking somebody else, but there's a 99% chance they take Zack Wilson. He's my number 2 pick.
What if they trade it? Could you imagine?
I've proposed that multiple times. I don't think it's off the off the rocker to sit there and look at trading it. I thought they were going to trade it prior to trading off Sam Darnold, but that didn't happen.
Okay.
Now we have Fields next, and I know that you like Pitts in this next spot, but I'm sorry, I know that you like Sewell in this next spot, but I do have the Falcons taking Pitts. I do think it's reasonable for them to trade out, but they have been very resilient about not trading out. So
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and go with Kyle Pitts at this point.
So even myself, I remember somebody asked on Twitter if I think that they'll trade and replace Julio. If they do trade Julio, I do think it's more likely they replace him with Pitts than they do replace him with Jamar Chase, personally. Because Pitts hopefully you'd think that they view him the way they use Jonnu, but better because he can play more wide receiver, Pitts. But guy, he is still a tight end. But I think they would replace Julio more with Kyle Pitts than they do with Chase. So for sure, if it's not Sewell, I do think it would be Pitts.
Yo, Taylor, what's up, man? Did you just get in here?
Don't worry, Chase is going to go next here, buddy.
Did Taylor just get in here?
I think he might have.
Oh, man. Guess what? I do not have. I don't. I'm not. Taylor, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I still believe 100% that we sit there, we see Penei Sewell drafted. God, look at Taylor blowing up. You missed the whole prop bets episode, man. Like, that was the biggest thing. All right, so I do think that the Penei Sewell still goes with the Bengals. I'm still taking that pick and locking it in, and I'm actually going to make a fun trade. Watch, Taylor's going to leave now.
Taylor has left the chat.
Sorry,
buddy. I tried.
I'm going to make a fun trade where the Lions see themselves one pick away from the player they actually wanted at number 4 overall, and they offer up the house for what they get it. Oh, they're trading one spot just to get that spot.
These are the worst.
Yep. We're going to go and throw in this one just for now, just for the fun sake of it. Wait, what happened?
They're gonna Chicago Bears themselves right here. Fitting. Keep it in the division.
So the Lions move up and they actually get their guy, Jamar Chase, the guy that they've been trying to trade for the past couple of days.
Oh, man.
This is the stuff we tend to see with these drafts, right? Like I told you guys at the beginning of this episode, guys and girls, I told you guys y'all at the beginning of this episode, we see these mock drafts come out, and there's only been out of the Dan Jeremiah, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay drafts, they've got a total of 18 right combined from all those picks they made for the first round. It just doesn't happen the same way. And weird things tend to happen, just like the Chicago Bears moved up one spot along with multiple other players. So I think that the Lions see their opportunity, right? I think that the Miami Dolphins don't take a chance with it. I think the Miami Dolphins take a chance with it and decide to trade back one spot and give the Lions their guy. So up next,
interesting.
It is an interesting take. It's a little bit weird, but the Dolphins can still grab the guy that I believe they should have taken in the first place, which is tackle outside of Sewell.
Yeah.
Sean Slater.
Okay.
They've already planned for it. We've already seen the sign. Taylor said he reported me. So sitting there and looking at it, right? The Dolphins have kind of given us a sign by trading Eric Flowers that they're going to do something on the offensive line. And I'd rather than not take a chance and go and get the guy that could actually, solidify the left-hand side and grab their guy Slater. I know that some of the Carolina fans are disappointed, but that opens up another little window for them. So let's see. Where was I? We have Slater drafted to the Dolphins. Up next, we have a trade. This is where I see the first trade happening. I know I talked about how the Minnesota Vikings are likely team to move up, but I think the Patriots actually make the first move and jump up. They have Stephon Gilmore, which is rumored to be a trade asset. Troy Hill got crushed last year in the passing game.
Oh,
I mean, he got absolutely murdered. So I'm sitting there and looking at the fact that the Carolina Panthers feel like they're a little bit closer. They can be able to re-sign Gilmore. He can also be a leader on that defense and teach the defense how to win because he's been a leader on the defense for a while. So I'm thinking they can move back with the Patriots.
Oof.
And get that.
Not going to make people happy.
Nope.
It's not going to make people happy.
So all of a sudden, we're sitting there and we are looking at the Patriots drafting.
Don't do it.
What? Don't do what?
Don't give them that QB.
Which one? Which one do you not want to see?
Them.
No, they're getting
Trey
Trey
Lance. I want to
Lance.
see them be bad for. Oh no!
They're getting Trey Lance. The Patriots are going to go ahead and grab their quarterback of the future who can sit behind Cam Newton for a year and learn how not to pass the ball. We're not talking about how to pass the ball. We're learning how not to pass the ball and how to be a better teammate. I truly think that the Patriots have to do something over there, of course. And although I think that Cam Newton can be successful this year, I think his predecessor is going to be laid in this draft. Now, the Denver Broncos, right?
I'm so hurt.
They are sitting there now, and they don't have Trey Lance, the quarterback that they thought might actually drop them. Mm-hmm. They now have Mac Jones on the board. And I don't think they like Mac Jones.
Teddy Too Scared 2.0.
Well, he kind of fits in there kind of well. He fits behind Teddy Two Gloves. But I think that the Bears make an offer for Jones they cannot refuse.
Oh.
I think the Bears end up offering a first-round pick this year, a first-round pick next year, and a second-round pick I believe I had in this year's draft as well. Might have been next year's. In the third round.
Oh, man.
So I think the Bears pretty much compromise their future because Ryan Pace is on the hot seat, and he needs to have an excuse saying, hey, I might have signed Andy Dalton, but I also made the right move for the franchise by acquiring a quarterback in the future. Let's give it one more year to see if it works.
Nick Foles. Oh, man.
It's going to be a mess. But
I feel so
think
bad
that they have to move
Bears
on.
fans. Guys, you can get through this time period, okay? We went through Kyle Bowler. You guys will survive this. Just hang in there. This is going to be rough. I'm sorry. My thoughts and prayers are with you guys.
So I play a little bit around with, the Vikings moving up in this case scenario, like we talked about earlier. But I think the Bears can offer so much more than the Vikings can. And I think it makes it almost impossible for the Broncos to pass up because the Broncos do have multiple needs, especially on defense, which is, if they have a plethora of them in the mid to the second, half of the draft. So I'm going with the Chicago Bears here. Yeah, I think I ended up having the 20th pick, the 52nd, and the first overall, or the first round pick next year. So the Bears move up and grab that. Got to force that through.
Oh,
so the Bears take. God, you don't have to yell at me so much, man. The Bears take Mac Jones. So far, just to give everybody a recap that's joined in, we have Trevor Lawrence, Zack Wilson, Justin Fields, Kyle Pitts, Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase with a trade as they move up one spot. Then you have Rashawn Slater going to the Dolphins. You have Trey Lance going to the Patriots who moved up. Then Mac Jones moving up. So we have three straight trades technically. All right, the Cowboys are up and they got Surtain. I don't really see them messing around with that too much. I think it's a lock. Are we in with that? Are you at least on board with that one?
I'm in there. I mean, I think they wanted Pitts, but I think that I think giving them Pitts would be absolutely insane for their offense, but they do need help at corner. So Surtain, I like it. I'm in.
Well, wait. Pitts was already off the board, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so now we have the Giants, and I think the Giants have to take another wide receiver, somebody they can play a little bit underneath. Ooh, no, I'm not going Waddle.
See, I think to go Waddle. I think this is where he goes. Where are you going? I want to see it.
I'm going Devonta Smith. I think that they treasure. Okay. Yeah. I think they treasure this this type of player a little bit more. I know he's a little bit too small, whatever the case is. I don't see Devonta Smith falling like everybody else does. He's been too productive throughout all of college. Obviously, the Heisman Trophy winner. Phenomenal hands, 6'6" wingspan, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is a smash play. I'm going Devonta Smith here for the Giants.
I'm very interested to see who you take with the Eagles here because I think we might be on this same wavelength, but flip-floppy. Let's see what you got here.
So the Eagles, I would have taken Waddle if they didn't have Jalen Reagor, but I feel like they're too similar of players to an extent. I mean, they both have different skill sets, but I think that they need defense. And so I was going to take Waddle at first. Like I was almost locked into Waddle. But the reality is, like, they're never going to have a shot. And the Eagles have traditionally built their rosters on defense, especially when they're about to go into a rebuild mode. Plus, they have a bunch of defensive players that are coming to the end of their careers. They're locked up with salary cap space. And yeah, they just need defensive help. So I actually have them going with J.C. Horn with this pick.
Oh, fancy, huh? Okay.
I think J.C. Horn has the athletic profile and the type of profile that the Eagles actually value. Plus, I mean, he's the most skilled cornerback at this time that doesn't have an injury concern.
Right. See, that's interesting. I thought for sure it was Waddle, New York, and actually Devonta Smith, Philly.
If Devonta Smith was there, I would have taken Devonta Smith, which is why I feel like the Giants also had to play a little bit of keep away. I also played a lot with the Eagles trading back. I played a lot with the Eagles trading back, but I just could not see them trading back twice when they have such an important need here. And although they can take a bunch of shots, I just don't see it happening. So the Chargers are up, and the Chargers need one position that's very, very clear. We're talking about left tackle.
Oh,
now,
God.
I actually liked Elijah Vera Tucker here a little bit more, but I think Christian Darrisaw is more of a need being on the outside. Elijah Vera Tucker can play both, but he's more so a guard. I'm putting Christian Darrisaw over there at the left tackle position for the Chargers. Up next, we have the Vikings. And the Vikings, this is a run up to the podium. This is a perfect pick.
They're just sprinting.
Do you know who I'm going to put? Are you looking at the show sheet?
No. I'm experiencing this naturally, and I'm into it. I'm thrilled. I want to see what you got.
So I actually had the Vikings. Wait, where'd I put them? Timeout.
Dun 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 dun.
Oh, somehow I missed their. All right, yeah. So I had them taking Elijah Vera Tucker.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Yes, I did. Elijah Vera Tucker. Sorry. I had to double check that because I had my two things mixed up. Elijah Vera Tucker is going to the Vikings. It fills in a need that they desperately need in the offensive line. We talked about that, where they needed a tackle. They need a guard as well. They can get by having Elijah Vera Tucker play tackle for a minute. But, yeah, that's going to be going. Elijah Vera Tucker is heading to the Vikings. Do you like a different pick there?
So I like the offensive line pick. I'm just curious. You have him there as a tackle. I'm looking at, just for an example, I'm looking at the ESPN big board who lists him as the number one guard. Is he a natural tackle? I'm not as familiar with him. So is he a natural tackle, or is he kind of a swing? Or do you think that they're just going to coach him up in the tackle position?
I still have him going in there as a guard. I do not have him as a tackle. I have him as a guard.
Okay. I love the pick. I love the pick then, for sure. I see tackle there, and I got a little confused. But yeah, no, I like the pick. I think they need the help for sure. It'll help Cook and that offense really tick. I'm into it.
All right, so up next, I had a little bit of difficulty with this. All right, we're sitting there, we're looking at, I guess, a little bit of a different situation. We have some issues like, with Carolina. They just acquired in the mock draft that I did earlier. They just acquired Stephon Gilmore. So if they want to put another guy underneath Gilmore, just to make sure that they have somebody back Gilmore up if they lose him, because he has 1 year left on his contract, I have Carolina taking Gilmore up next. So Let's lock in Gilmore. I know some people wanted to go wide receiver here. Or did I say Gilmore? Let's lock in
You
Newman.
did.
I apologize. Newman.
I was letting you get there.
Greg Newsome, he's a very talented cornerback. He definitely fits their system that they're running over there. And I think he could end up being the third cornerback at worst on a team. But let's just say that Troy Hill doesn't work out because he did look so bad last year. Let's just say that Stephon Gilmore doesn't come back. All of a sudden, we're seeing a player that can step up into this role that doesn't have to immediately do it. Well, at least hopefully not, depending on how Troy Hill does this year.
Right.
All right. So up next, we have Arizona. And Arizona's in an interesting spot because they need wide receivers to an extent. They also need, I don't know, they need some offensive line help. Like I would love to see Elijah Vera Tucker land here. I'm actually going to go ahead and say that Waddle.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
Waddle ends up going to Arizona to spread out the field because they don't have a field stretcher if Andy Isabella does not work out. It doesn't give Kyler Murray, or it gives Kyler Murray a deep threat, somebody that can take the safeties out of the box, so it could increase the rushing game from Kyler Murray. And guess what? If Kyler Murray runs play action or an option play, it could end up leaving Waddle deep. So I love Waddle actually going to Arizona. You have a guy that you would like to see go there other than Waddle?
Oh, man. No. I mean, obviously their defense needs work. So I think one of these edge rushers, I think the edge rushers are falling too far. I think that's definitely something that because if I'm not mistaken, they're losing Reddick, and he was just an absolute performer for them, especially with Jones being hurt. Jones coming off of injury. I think that they could definitely look to target the number one pass rushing option. But you're right. I think Big Cliff is going to live and die by his offense. Waddle fits. He can run the shallow crossers, get the ball in his hands, and be the electric player he is, or burn him over the top like Kingsbury likes to do with they signing AJ Green. I think they need that counterbalance, and they could run that 4-wide true spread system I think they've wanted to run. And you're right, with Isabella just not being it. So I think it's a good spot for him. I don't think he'll be there, but if he falls, I think they're running just full sprint. They're running to that podium for sure.
For him to fall this far, it's got to be pretty impressive. And honestly, I contemplated with making a little trade from the Dolphins aspect and moving up a couple spots. But I mean, I don't think that the Cardinals would turn that down if they got Waddle all the way at 16.
No, the NFL loves him for sure.
All right, so let's hop over to the Raiders.
So the only other player, just one thing, is your guy that would fit there. Is your guy Kadarius Toney? I think I think he could be the other pick for the Cardinals. I think he does everything that they love in a receiver as well. But I think it's a little high for him. But this is the thing with the draft: things get weird.
Things do get weird, and that's the biggest
Big
thing to
weird.
take away. All right, so I actually have for the Raiders, Mo Rig coming out. The safety over there, they need a safety. I played a little bit with linebacker. Like I was sitting there thinking, like maybe they go with Parsons, who's still on the board. Maybe they go with Kwity Paye. But I mean, they've been trying to find a safety over there for 3 or 4 years now, and they have not been able to do it.
When they just brought back, I'm trying to remember his name, and I am blanking. But they brought back their first round pick from a couple years ago.
Abram?
No, he was still on the roster. He had left. Is it Neal? No. Oh man, it's killing me. Tackling machine. I'm blanking, but I know they signed a player that they had drafted. They brought him back at safety, and they still have Abram there. So you're right. They've definitely been hunting. So this is a very interesting pick for me.
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting there. They need the position. They need a skill player. And I know that they need offensive line, but there's no offensive linemen that are valuable right here. I played around with the fact they could take Barmore, but I just don't see that happening. I think that they have to go safety at this point to get a playmaker on this defense, because this defense was not great at making plays. And to sit there and have somebody that can, is good in coverage, is decent, in stopping the run, I think that's a lock. And honestly, he's the only safety that could go in the first round, in my opinion. So I think that he's a slam play. I'm going to go ahead and draft him.
If safety finally comes off the board.
Yes,
We've been talking about it, and here it is.
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting, and I think that they want to give Tua weapons. And although I really wanted to make a play up for Waddle, I just didn't see a way to make it happen. I kind of wanted to make it happen with the Eagles at 12, possibly. But sitting there and looking at it, I think that Rashad Bateman makes a lot of sense. He's somewhat of a skill player, but they got Will Fuller who can stretch the field or play slot. They need somebody on the outside. I know that Devontae Parker's still there under contract. But Rashad Bateman makes sense. And honestly, he's like one of the best players available talent-wise outside of Micah Parsons. Now, Micah Parsons, I really wanted to take here, but with the character concerns, I mean, I just don't know if that's a play at this point. So I'm going Rashad Bateman over here to the Dolphins.
It was Carl Joseph, the player I was thinking of. Carl Joseph re-signed with the Raiders.
Yeah, he can't stay healthy, though.
Yeah, it's to eight. Neither can Abram, so you're right.
Yeah. They might want to play 3 safeties, too, in their nickel coverages, which they did a lot of last year. When they could. All right, so Washington's up at the clock. And Washington, they need a bunch of things. And with Rashad Bateman coming off the board right before them, there's not a lot of opportunity, I guess, for Washington to take a wide receiver. They need tackle help. There's not a lot of tackles on the board. Like you could look at like Walker Little, who hadn't played in 2 years. You could look at Tevin Jenkins, who is a mauler, in the run game. But that's a little bit of a stretch to go ahead and draft him early. So I actually have Washington trading back in this case scenario. They need linebackers. They need thumpers, but they also need draft picks because they're about to have a bunch of holes in their offense with how many free agent contracts they have coming up. Some of the Dolphins are going to have to deal with here in a few years. But we sit there and we look at it, and the Jets actually are in an opportunity where they can move up.
Oh.
Owusu Koromoa makes a lot of sense, to play that linebacker position for the Jets.
Okay.
I think he should have gone before him. I think he's a little bit more talented, but sitting there looking at it, I think the Jets make a play for him, and the Jets actually move up with Washington. They offer some form of a first, a second, and possibly a third to move up. Obviously, they're first. And the Washington pulls the trigger on that trade. I said the Washington. The Washington football team pulls the trigger on that trade. They move back, 4 or 5 spots. And, I don't want to. Yeah, that's the right one. All of a sudden, Washington's in a good seat to take a linebacker there at 23. Meanwhile, the Jets actually get their guy. Oops, I think I made the wrong trade. Oh, wait, yeah.
Oh.
There we go. We're good. We're in the money. All right, so we have the Jets selecting Owusu Koromoa.
There you go. That's a good pick.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
a lot
they
of
would
people
love him in New York.
Their linebacking core was absolutely horrible. It was horrendous. And to be able to add talent in there along with the guy who can cover and play safety if need be in like bear situations, we're talking about a linebacker that's the perfect fit for them. Like we talk about like Pat Warner, I believe, for the 49ers.
Fred Warner,
I'm sorry. Fred Warner for the 49ers. He almost fits that profile to an extent. Can play sideline to sideline. Great coverage guy. I'm locking that in.
If they get rid of Mosley, right? And because Mosley should be back, he's gonna come in and take that spot. He can put some relief on Mosley or even move Mosley outside. We don't know what system they're gonna come in and run. Probably the same style 4-3. I think he fits there really well.
All right, so Denver moved back, right?
Yes.
And they're sitting there at 20. And guess who I had them taking at 9 if they stayed where they were at? Just take a wild guess.
Oh, if I had to take a guess, Alex Leatherwood.
No, Micah Parsons, who they now get at 20.
Okay.
Well, maybe back a bunch of spots, picking up a first-round pick, maybe 2 second rounds. Have to see how that trade works out. But he moves back. Now we have the Colts who need an edge rusher. They need a bunch of positions. But I had the Saints trying to move up with them, but I think Kwity Paye sitting this high up is somebody that you can't pass on when you need an edge rusher. Kwity Paye was projected to go in the top 15 picks, and he didn't do anything wrong. He just, got passed up by other people who were doing things right. So I actually have Kwity Paye being selected at the 21st spot by the Indianapolis Colts. I think Jacob would be happy with that one.
He fits. Yeah. I think he definitely fits that spot, and they do need it. They need it bad. Houston's getting old. He's getting up there. They're not putting the same kind of pressure on. I think he adds that freak play. I think you're right on the edge here, although it's very Indianapolis to take a tackle, but I just don't think there's one worth reaching for here. I think this is the right play.
Now, this is where I had another like difficult decision because you're looking at like the Titans, right? And they need a cornerback desperately. They just pretty much outed their entire secondary, and I think they're looking the same way that the Minnesota Vikings did back last year, where they don't have a secondary anymore. So like Caleb Farley makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you talk about Tevin Jenkins, who's a mauler. Like he's phenomenal in the run game. And that's exactly what Tennessee wants, is a mauler in the run game. They need tackle. They need tackle as well. So I see Tennessee actually taking Tevin Jenkins.
Oh.
Tevin Jenkins over Caleb Farley because Caleb Farley's injury concerns.
See, that's where I would have assumed Asante Samuel Jr. was going to go.
Okay, yeah, that's another one as well. But supposedly there's high interest from the Titans in Caleb Farley. They're just nervous about that.
Okay.
That's why I had the Saints trying to move up to trade with the Colts to get one spot ahead of the Titans to take Caleb Farley. But I don't have them taken in many ways. So now we have the Washington football team. And as we look, the Steelers are going to need help in the secondary. The Jaguars need help in the secondary. The Browns need some sort of help in the secondary. And so the Saints freak out. And guess what? Washington doesn't need this pick once again. Sure, they could end up using a wide receiver, a tackle, anything like that. I don't see any one of these people actually fitting into the plan that they're trying to pursue. So Washington moves back with the Saints.
Okay. Big moves for the football team. Big moves.
Well, yeah, it allows them to pick up more draft picks. We're talking about, maybe a total of 2 additional second-round picks. I'm enjoying the Saints moving up because they move up almost every year to get their guy, don't they? I mean, if they see a defensive player they like, they move up in their draft to get him. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah, hey, no, that's absolutely legit.
All right, where are we? So we'll have Washington move up. Let's see, 28th, 23rd. I don't really care about the second-round picks or whatever it is. Cool. Offer trade. Oops, forgot to force it through. All right, so now we have the Saints picking one spot ahead of the Steelers. And the Saints at this point go with the guy that they've been very interested in, Caleb Farley. Good to go?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that? Okay.
I like that one.
Now we have the Steelers. And the Steelers, we know, need help on the offensive line. They need help everywhere. They should have done a rebuilding year this year. I felt like this strongly. They should let guys walk, not re-sign everybody so they could have gotten compensatory picks. Instead the Steelers, they re-sign, or they bring back Ben Roethlisberger because it feels like he has one more year to play. They brought back Juju Smith-Schuster. They did let Bud Dupree walk, which was nice, but I don't know if they're completely sold on competing this year. They might still be trying to sell their season tickets this year. So they make it look like they're rebuilding the offensive line by taking a project tackle, somebody that did phenomenal like the year before he left. Like I believe he only allowed like 7 pressures in the last half of the season that he played, but I think that was all the way back in 2018. Either way, Walker Little has been getting NFL teams excited. Not really fantasy, enthusiasts excited. But Walker Little actually goes here to the Steelers. Now, I did have a case that if Mac Jones drops, that the Steelers actually move up in this case scenario. But I don't think they're really looking to do that this year. I think they want to look like they're trying to win, so they draft Walker Little to play left tackle as he develops.
You don't think that there's any chance this is the Najee Harris pick that people have been floating around in Pittsburgh?
Where's he going to run?
Yeah, hey, I know. Hey.
Where is he going to run? That's the issue. And I feel like the Steelers have been very smart about that. I mean, they haven't drafted a first-round running back since I can remember. I don't know where the bus went. Where did the bus go? Was the bus a first-round pick?
From L.A.?
From L.A. to Pittsburgh? No, but... Oh, yeah, that was a... Wait, was that a trade?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a trade. Yeah, so the Steelers don't draft running back.
Jerome started in L.A.
That's right. I completely forgot about that. You're completely right. So I'm sitting there looking at it as them looking like they're going to rebuild. They add talent on the offensive line. Now, let's go ahead and let's head over to where we at? The Jags. The Jags need help on the edge. Now, I really wanted to take a wide receiver here, but I'm like, dude, they're already loaded up on wide receiver. I thought about Najee Harris. They have James Robinson. They don't need it right now. And the Jags are going to be analytically driven. They want speed. They want pressure on the quarterback. So here I'm going Jalen Phillips.
Nice
Jalen
pick.
Phillips out of the U. I know they still have edge rushers like Jason Owe. They have defensive linemen, which was actually probably the toughest pick that I did not take with Christian Barmore. I'm going Jalen Phillips as an edge rusher to get pressure on the quarterback over there to Jacksonville. I think they're going to continue to build that. I think they're going to rotate their edge rushers constantly, and I think they're going to continue to force pressure on the quarterback in the upcoming years. I'm very excited for Jacksonville. Sure. All right, so we have who's up next? The Browns.
Boo.
Get out of here. The Browns are in a really good position. They still need corner. They could use an edge rusher. They could use a linebacker, but I think they really need help on the defensive line. And Christian Barmore at this point has dropped way too far.
Yes.
There's a chance that Cleveland could have moved up, but the thing is, not too many teams in this range need defensive lines. Normally, when teams are drafted later in the draft, they already have the defensive line settled because that's how you build your teams, is through the trenches. So the Cleveland Browns go with Christian Barmore to stop and shut down Lamar Jackson.
Try to.
And the Baltimore Ravens offense. Christian Barmore to the Browns.
I think Jadeveon Clowney's going to do that more than Homie, but that defense is going to be disgusting. They're winning that division, and it makes me so mad.
They are. But the Ravens, they get the next best pass rusher on the board after Jalen Phillips. Right? I mean, at this point, Jason is sunk pretty low.
That's exactly so on Tri-City Sports last night. This is the exact pick I made at 27. Yep, exact pick I made.
Perfect timing then.
I don't think he falls this far in realistically, but it's hard to see where else he goes.
Yeah.
That's the kind of player they want. He didn't record a sack last year and everyone's freaking out about it, but he fits the athletic profile that the Ravens like on the outside. They can move him around. They can put him on the inside, outside, move him around. He kind of has that Zadarius Smith athletic length and hustle that they like. He could be a little stronger at the attack, but I mean, once you get slapped around against Pittsburgh and Cleveland a few times in the rivalries, you'll toughen up pretty quick. So I love the pick. I would be ecstatic to see him come and play for Baltimore.
Well, the biggest thing for me now is Washington, right? Where they need a backer. And a lot of people that are Washington fans, they want to go like Nick Bold and they want to run stopper. But honestly, Zaven Collins is such an athletic freak. And what this organization, well, when it comes to Rivera, along with everybody that's had his back, is they draft linebackers really, really well. Yes. And Zaven Collins is the freak that could fit in this system, and he doesn't have to be great right off the bat. He just has to make plays, because guess what? The whole rest of his team is going to be opening up lines for him. They're going to be doubled up, and all of a sudden, Zaven Collins comes in, and he picks up 10 sacks in his first season. Zaven Collins is going to Washington with the 28th overall pick.
I like that pick.
Well, for 29th, what would you like to see Green Bay do?
Kellen Mond. Sorry,
no,
Billy.
Too early. Wait, why Kellen Mond?
Just because it fits their motif.
Oh God!
To spite Aaron Rodgers. They live to spite him. Again, I'm sorry, Billy. So it may sound crazy, but I still don't think they draft a receiver. I don't think they do it.
Can they survive another year without doing it?
I think, yeah, probably. I think they can.
So I was thinking about doing Elijah Moore here. I think Elijah Moore makes a lot of sense. I think
he's the easy one there for sure.
But I think that the way that Mike McCarthy runs his offense, I think that Kadarius Toney is the route that he goes. Kadarius Toney reminds me a lot of Randall Cobb.
That who runs the offense?
I'm sorry, not Mike McCarthy.
You said Mike McCarthy and Randall Cobb. We're time warping right now. We're drifting back in time.
I was sitting there thinking about because Kadarius Toney reminds me of Randall Cobb. Actually does. This offense,
good.
I mean, I think that reminds me exactly of the system. And with the system that they're running over there, I just think that Kadarius Toney is the perfect fit.
Yep.
We've seen with the Titans how they ran, Adam Humphries when he could stay healthy in the system, and Kadarius is the right fit over Elijah Moore, who's more of a gadget player, or at least my worst fear is that he becomes a gadget player. So I'm actually going to go Kadarius Toney at this point.
And it keeps MVS on the outside. Tony can move kind of inside and do his thing. They can free him up, especially with Tunyon breaking out last year. I think it's a good fit. I'd still think they spitefully take an offensive lineman, but like center could be a real possibility. Guard, sure. But I think receiver, maybe they finally go, we are so sorry for what we did last year.
All right, so we're on the last 3 picks.
Ooh, baby.
And in these last 3 picks, I believe I have 2 receivers. So the last 3 or 4 picks in this draft, I have, 3 total receivers. We already saw Kadarius Toney. So out of these 3 teams, who do you think takes a wide receiver?
Not Baltimore.
Not Baltimore. You're wrong. I have Baltimore taking a receiver. We have the Bills taking Asante Samuel. I know
everyone else does, but I don't.
They are taking Asante Samuel to the Bills.
I love that pick for them. Asante Samuel Jr. is one of my favorite players in this entire draft. He's got
need somebody on the other side of the field.
Deion Sanders, FSU swag.
I completely agree with you. Asante Samuel is a lock in this spot for me if he falls this far. It's not even a question.
Yeah.
Now, Baltimore was questionable because I was like, Terrace Marshall makes sense. There's an array, like edge rushers make sense. It's literally, you could go anywhere with Baltimore because they have the talent needed, but they still, for some reason, they just want to keep adding speed on this offense.
Don't say it.
Elijah Moore.
No. I might
Moore.
revoke my fandom if that happens.
Well, I mean, they got 2 picks. You already got an edge rusher.
So here's, if I may,
go ahead.
Interject with the Ravens here. First off, I don't think they keep both first-round picks. I think they trade one back to get a pick in the second and acquire more picks because that's just what they do. And
you have to have teams that want to move up.
Exactly, and I think that they'll turn some of the extra 3rd and 4th rounders into a second. I think they'll end up with 2 second-rounders and 1 first-rounder. I think it's more likely that they take my man, and I've said this numerous times, Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater at this pick at 31, if they stay there, or they trade back and they still get him, and then they land a player like Tylan Wallace later in the draft. Now, remember, Marshall's injury concern is starting to pop up, which could push him down the board.
That's why I didn't have him taking that.
If he gets pushed down the board and the Ravens trade back, they may end up with Quinn and Terrence Marshall in the 2nd round. And that's what I'm hoping for in the most part, or a guy like Tylan Wallace, just not more. We don't need that player on that kind of player, I should say.
Watching the Ravens draft, I don't know how they can pass on him. And the worst thing is it ruins Marquise Brown's value.
I mean, watching Bozeman launch footballs 27 feet over Jackson's head is probably why I say they pass on him, because Quinn, not a traditional center, took snaps there at the Senior Bowl and was fantastic. And I think at the end of the day, scheme fit, protecting their biggest asset, Jackson, and they make their money up the middle with them potentially signing Villanueva, which has been floated around after the draft. Their tackle should be fine to replace Orlando Brown. I think they're going to plug the middle. They sign Zeitler, draft Quinn, and they get Stanley back.
So this is the one that I was playing with the most, because the team could draft up or trade up and draft a quarterback in the 32nd overall pick, and then they get their 5th-year option off him. But Rondale Moore, what if they just want to keep adding options? And then they need a guy to take over for Chris Godwin in the slot after he's gone, right? Rondale Moore makes so much sense here. It's when you're playing with toy for Tom Brady. You're literally playing with house money here.
That would leave, because they just signed AB. So Antonio Brown is back.
He's just a replacement for Chris Godwin when he leaves. And he's a toy in the meantime.
Johnson and the 3 tight ends. I think that you're right when it comes to playing with house money. Hear me out here at 32. But Travis Etienne. How many running backs did Bruce Arians sign / draft to be the pass catcher? It was McCoy. It was Fournette. It's Vaughn.
Giovanni Bernard, though. They got Giovanni Bernard this time.
Yeah, I don't know if he makes it out of camp.
I mean, he might not if they sign Etienne, but I just don't see them invest in a running back. He's never done it.
Fair.
Like it's not a Bruce Arians thing. He doesn't believe in the running back position. That's why he gives everybody an equal chance, essentially, and he plays the hot hand.
That's fair. Okay.
And plus, Tom Brady hates rookie running backs. He hates them. He hates them with a passion. Like, have you ever seen a rookie running back be successful with Tom Brady for the entire season? Because I don't think it's happened. They always trade for veterans. He doesn't trust them pass blocking. He doesn't trust them because he gets hit. So
and they're in a win now mode, for sure. Their pass rush was really good. This is this is the most house money pick, and I know it's easy to say they won the Super Bowl. They're going pick 32. Of course, they're playing.
They brought back their entire offense. They brought back their entire defense.
It is the most house money pick I can remember being taken at 32. Because most Super Bowl teams have holes. Everyone said that Clyde was a house money pick. The Chiefs had holes in the roster. The Bucs don't really right now. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing that they get to literally do whatever they want. And I think you're right. And that's where a player like Moore could go. It's a little spicy. That's kind of the way Arians goes. Hey, Tom, here's another. I think it would be a nightmare for fantasy. An absolute nightmare, but it's spicy and I'm into it.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Got that little bit of hot sauce.
We're gonna get out of here. We got a big day tomorrow. I got 5 shows. Yeah. Let everybody know about your show tomorrow.
So tomorrow we're going live with a slew of guests, yourself included. The man Chase is going to be there. Matt Seward. We got Jeff Bell. We got so many people popping in and out of the show tomorrow. That is the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. We're going to be going live. It's Twitch, it's YouTube, it's Twitter, it's wherever you be able to find us. And that's at Full Tilt Dynasty Pod. And I'm really excited for doing that. No Friday show this week, but we're ready for next week. We're going to review the draft. So fire it up, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. And you guys can find me all over the place. Like tomorrow, I don't even. I got a show with Sigma Blim, Matt Waldman. We got y'all's show. I got shows everywhere. So make sure you guys check us out everywhere. That needs to be found. I'll be posted on my Twitter page at @FF_intervention. Thomas, where can we find you on Twitter?
That's right there, right on the screen. That's Thomas Tipple FF coming at you.
All right, guys. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you guys for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life.